The New York Islanders sweep this weekend's 2 games, both against divisional opponents. We'll talk about the biggest difference in the last 2 games and why that's a good sign for the rest of the season. All that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. I'm Gil Martin. I've been covering the New York Islanders for almost 2 decades, and I wrote the book on the history of the Islanders' rivalry with the Rangers from 1972 to the modern era. So glad you could join us today to talk a little Islanders hockey, and we have got a lot to get to on today's show. 2 games this weekend, 2 wins this weekend, both against Metro Division opponents. We will have our hero and GOAT of both games. We'll have our key takeaways. We'll talk about a big award for Matthew Schaefer, and we'll discuss the biggest difference between the last 2 games and the earlier games played this season and why that bodes well for the New York Islanders. So all that and more coming up on today's show. Let's start with the Sunday late afternoon / early evening win over the Columbus Blue Jackets. And I got to say, I, for one, was nervous heading into the final minutes of this game. The Islanders had dominated most of the game, certainly dominated the first period. In the second period, it was a little more even, but third period, more Islanders domination again, and yet they were down 2-1 with a little more than a minute left in regulation, and then 2 goals in 29 seconds, one by Matthew Schaefer, one by Simon Holmstrom, and the New York Islanders end up with a 3-2 win over the Columbus Blue Jackets. And you love the way this team came up in the clutch. That, to me, was the most encouraging aspect of this game. And look, the Islanders, as I mentioned, dominated early. First period, what were the shots? 18-4 in favor of the Islanders. And yet they were only ahead by a score of 1-0. And that remains a problem for this team. The fact that they can dominate a game and still not finish often enough to be up more than 1-0, because the way that game was going, the Islanders easily could have been ahead 2-0, 3-0. Hats off to Elvis Merzlikins, the goalie for the Blue Jackets, because he was really good, but boy, oh boy, so many chances for the New York Islanders in that first period. And to only be up 1-0 on the Matthew Schaefer first goal was a little concerning and a little frustrating, to say the least. And yet, to their credit, the Islanders just kept plugging away. Now, the second period, as I mentioned, more in favor of Columbus. But in the third, the Islanders just kept plugging. And finally, were able to break through. Maybe it helps a little bit that Columbus was playing the second game of a back-to-back, so that certainly does help late in the game. But the Islanders, you got to take advantage when you have those opportunities, and they most certainly did. And I have to admit, I was surprised in this game that Patrick Waugh decided to start David Rittich, because Friday against the Capitals, by far, was Ilya Sorokin's best game of the season this year. Not even close. Not even debatable, really. And you would think, okay, Sorokin is playing well. He may have finally straightened things out. There's an off day Saturday. I'll go ride the hot hand. And instead, Waugh switches back to Ritchie. And Ritchie is coming off. He had 2 really solid starts and then a not so good start in his last outing. Kind of a gutsy move there by Waugh. And yet it worked because, quite honestly, David Ritchie did his job and then some against the Columbus Blue Jackets. And Matthew Schaefer, 2 goals in this game. And again, it's kind of interesting because how many games so far this year has Matthew Schaefer led the Islanders in ice time? Well, today or Sunday, Schaefer was last out of all 6 Islanders defensemen. Now, Waugh rotated his defensemen really steadily. So Schaefer was on the ice for 17 minutes and 24 seconds. And Alexander Romanov, who had the most minutes, was on for 21:38. So he really had all 3 pairs of defensemen rotating in almost equally. And yet, Schaefer goes out there, gets 2 of the 3 goals in this game, and plays really, really solid hockey, 3 shots on goal, and is able to help this team get the win. And Schaefer, by the way, named the NHL's Rookie of the Month for October, the first Islanders rookie to earn that honor in the first month of the year since Pat LaFontaine back when he made his debut in 1984. So just a big performance there by Matthew Schaefer, and that was really good. Simon Holmstrom comes through with the game-winning goal, and 2 Islanders that I have to shout out, maybe 3, for their work in the faceoff dot. Bo Horvat, 11 out of 13 faceoffs won, 84.6%. JG Pageau, 10 out of 12 faceoffs, 83.3%. And then Jonathan Drouin takes 7 draws, wins 5 of them, 71.4%. And to the credit of Patrick Waugh, little thing that you may not have noticed during the game, you know how many faceoffs Mathew Barzal took in this game? That would be none. 0. Null set. And, you could talk all you want about, oh yeah, Mathew Barzal, he is a natural center, and he is. But one thing he has never done well in his NHL career on a consistent basis is take faceoffs. And having Drouin take those draws, I think, was a smart move, and it paid off for the New York Islanders. Used to be, in past years when he was line mates with Anders Lee, Lee would take the faceoffs. If you want Mathew Barzal to play center, and it's fine if you do, although I still think right now, and we'll talk about this more tomorrow, I think you want to make more room for Cal Ritchie. But either way, not having Mathew Barzal take faceoffs is a no-brainer for the New York Islanders. Another really important factor in this game for the New York Islanders, the penalty kill. They did not give up a power play goal in this game. And that was huge for the New York Islanders, without question, because, there were plenty of opportunities for Columbus to, tie the game, or eventually they did take the lead, but to put the game out of reach, there were chances. And the Islanders PK not only did not allow a power play goal, but they minimized the high danger chances. And the rest was all big save Dave, right? David Ritchie coming up with some really solid stops on the PK, and the Islanders end up with the win. Hero and GOAT of the game on this one, got to go with Matthew Schaefer as the hero, scoring 2 of the 3 goals. In my mind, that is, where we're going to go with this one. And go to the game is a little bit tougher. I don't think anybody stood out as playing poorly. And to me, it's just go to the game is going to be the lack of finishing until the end of this game, where, Anders Lee, 5 shots on goal, Romanov, 4, 3. So many of the defensemen, Pelech, Polak, D'Angelo, and Schaefer, all had 3. Matt Barzal, 3. Emil Heineman, 3. But you couldn't finish. And that is a concern as we head further through this season. You have got to be able to finish if you want to get back into contention for a playoff spot at some point. But I love the stick-to-itness, the persistence of this Islanders team, the way they kept doing what was working for most of the game, even though they fell behind 2-1, and it paid off late in spades when the Blue Jackets either got tired or the Islanders in part wore them down with that aggressive forecheck and end up with a big 2 points in the standings. We have got a lot more to get to on today's show. We will discuss Friday's win over Alexander Ovechkin and the Washington Capitals. We'll talk about the biggest difference in these last 2 wins as compared to the first 10 games of this season. And we'll have our Islanders birthday of the day. This is maybe one of the hardest ones we've ever done. An undrafted center who played 4 games for the Islanders in 2008, 2009. Let's see if you can guess who this Kirkland Lake, Ontario native is. All that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Again, that's $300 in bonus bets to use across the app if your first $5 bet wins. So head over to FanDuel.com and check it out today. Today's episode is also brought to you by Monarch. Let's be honest, most of us can't even name all of our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why I started using Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch's visual dashboards and smart tools make it so much easier to understand where my money's going and how to make it work harder for me. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com. Code LOCKEDONNHL. You'll get half off your first year. Check it out at monarch.com today. Friday night, Islanders, Capitals, another win for the New York Islanders. And I have to say, this one was great. 3-1 in this game. And Alexander Ovechkin, we know he got the goal that passed Gretzky against the Islanders on Islanders home ice. Well, he was going for his 900th career NHL goal in this one, and the Islanders were able to prevent him from reaching that milestone. But the big difference in this game, by far, and the Islanders, they were outplayed early, got out of the first period scoreless, fell behind 1-0 on a goal by Tom Wilson, and then scored 3 unanswered goals, including an empty netter by Mathew Barzal at the end of the game to clinch the 3-1 win. But the biggest difference in this game by far was Ilya Sorokin rediscovered his A game. He faced only 23 shots, but he made 22 saves. That's a .957 save percentage. And everydayers know, and we've discussed this often on this show, for the Islanders to win, especially if they want to play the up-tempo style that Patrick Roy prefers to play, you need your goalie to make some huge saves. And prior to Friday night, more often than not, Ilya Sorokin was not able to come up with those clutch saves. He did against the Capitals. And right there is the biggest reason that the New York Islanders were able to win this hockey game. And that is the benchmark. That is something that must happen for the New York Islanders if they want to contend for a playoff spot this year. You cannot go out there and rely on this team, the way it's currently built, to win by scoring 5 or 6 goals a game. We have just seen over the last 2 games this weekend, the Islanders play 2 solid offensive games where they had plenty of scoring chances. But because this team does struggle to finish, they only scored 3 goals, and one of them was an empty netter on Friday, and 3 goals again on Sunday. And there's nothing wrong with 3 goals. In fact, I think that's probably the number we're going to see more often than not from the Islanders, 2 or 3 goals. So you need to make sure your defense gives your team, and your goalie gives your team, a chance to win. Was very happy to see Mathew Barzal back in the lineup, and he scored the empty net goal at the end, so that was good. And it was also, by the way, Friday, marking the NHL debut of Cal Ritchie. And we have to talk Cal Ritchie. Playing in his first 2 NHL games, would have played Thursday, but his plane was delayed, or his flight was, I think, even canceled, and he couldn't get to Raleigh in time. But Cal Ritchie, here's the deal. He was not outstanding in either game, but he was solid. And the kid looks like he belonged. Now, he took 2 penalties Friday. One of them was a ridiculously bad call where the Capitals player literally held onto the stick of Ritchie and fell down, and they called it. But regardless, Cal Ritchie in these 2 games was smart. He kept it simple. He didn't try to do too much, and he didn't make any boneheaded mistakes in either game. And, now the question becomes, when Max Shabanov, who missed both of this weekend's games with the same injury that has been bothering him, when he returns, what happens to Cal Ritchie? I want to see Cal Ritchie out there on the ice for the New York Islanders. I do not want him being sent back to Bridgeport. There are, right now, enough players on this team who are struggling, who you could send, either trade or send to Bridgeport, or just put them up in the press box in order to make room for Cal Ritchie. Ritchie belongs on this ice. And there was one play in the game against Columbus where Ritchie and Schaefer combined to make a really nice play. And I tweeted out during the game at that point, like, hopefully this is a vision of the future of the New York Islanders And I hope that future is sooner rather than later. But like 2-3 years from now, how good could that duo be? We'll see. But the potential is certainly there. So welcome to the New York Islanders, Cal Ritchie. But now Matthew Darche and Patrick Roy have some interesting decisions to make once Max Shabanov is ready to return to the lineup. And Maxim Siplikov, by the way, sitting on Sunday. He was a healthy scratch, and sitting on Friday as well. So clearly the Islanders not thrilled with his play. And then Anthony Duclair dropping back to the fourth line as of right now. After the trades and moves that Matthew Darche made over the offseason, this team has more depth. And this is what you can do now. You've actually got some interesting decisions to make in order to try to make room for Cal Ritchie. And again, everydayers will remember I have said I wanted to see 4 to 6 more trades made by this team to move some of the older veterans out, to add picks, prospects, or younger players. Maybe when Shabanov comes back, that's an opportunity to make the first of those moves. We'll see, again, how Matthew Darche handles the situation. Hero and go to the game. The hero is easy in my mind from Friday, and your votes on our YouTube page back this up. Ilya Sorokin had to be the hero of the game. And again, go to the game. In my mind, it had to be the power play, which just could not get on track against the Washington Capitals. But very good to see this team win both this weekend's games against divisional opponents, and that is huge. But the Islanders also did one other thing that was very encouraging over the weekend, and we're going to talk about that and its importance for the team going forward. We'll have that, plus our Islanders birthday of the day, coming up next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Hockey season is here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real, getting tickets can be a total headache. Between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout, it's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's where GameTime comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. Their zone deals really are a game changer. You pick the section, GameTime picks your seats, and you save big. You could even find NHL tickets for under $25. So take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Game time. So we got to talk about this one thing that the Islanders did really well Friday and Sunday that is potentially a game breaker, a difference maker going forward for this team. They played better team defense. The number of high danger chances given up by the Islanders in both of these games was a lot lower than what we saw in the games prior to this weekend. Shots on goal against the Capitals for the game, 23 faced by Ilya Sorokin. And Riddick against Columbus faced 22 shots. And both goalies played well. But it's an amazing thing how a goalie can play that much better when they're not facing as many rebounds, deflections, screen shots, shots from just outside or just inside the crease, mad scrambles in front of the goal. And I'm not saying none of these things happened, but the frequency with which they happened was way down. And, you know, it looks like, at least, that Patrick Roy has found some defensive combinations that are working. And, the forwards have been back checking more. And this team played more of a 200-foot game. You want to play up tempo, I get it. But you're not winning hockey games 5-4 very often with this lineup. It'll happen occasionally, but it's not happening every game, not consistently, unless all of a sudden the offense all of a sudden picks up and performs at a level that we haven't consistently seen them do with this particular roster. So great to see more attention to detail, better back checking, picking up players, not giving time and space through the neutral zone, not allowing as many rebounds, not allowing screenshots and high danger chances. That ultimately is huge for this team. And it is the biggest difference for the Islanders over the last two games, both of which they won. This is what we need to see from this team. And look, you've got a couple of more home games coming up. You got the Bruins. You got and then you go on the road. You got the Bruins and the Wild, and then 7 games on the road. Yeah, the first 2 are against the Rangers and the Devils, but you have got, and I mean you have got, to be able to bank some points before you go on that road trip. And, they can get 3 of the next 4 points and then break even on a 7-game road trip, go, let's say 3-3-1. You start banking points like that, there is hope for the future. All right, time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. This is a tough one. Anyone who gets this one, without looking it up, hats off to them. But Sunday was the 45th birthday of former Islanders center Curtis McLean. The Kirkland Lake, Ontario native, 5'11", 191 pounds, went to Norwich University for 4 years, bounced around the minors, and then joined the Islanders for 4 games during the 2008-2009 season. After that, played in Switzerland and in the KHL and Austria and Germany and Slovakia. Was active until 2020, 2021. But those 4 games he played with the Islanders were his only career NHL appearances, and he did score a goal, that one coming on January 21st, 2009. Islanders hosting the Anaheim Ducks at the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum. J.S. Giguère in goal for Anaheim. Jan Denis in between the pipes for the New York Islanders. The Islanders took a 1-0 lead on a power play goal by Kyle Oposo. And then late in the first period, our Islanders' birthday of the day, Curtis McLean scores his first career NHL goal. Franz Nielsen and Jack Hillen with the assists. Bobby Ryan scores in the second period to get it close, but the Islanders hold on to win the game 2-1. Jan Denis with 39 saves in a game the Islanders were outshot 40-14. But Curtis McLean, our Islanders' birthday of the day, only played 10 minutes and 3 seconds, only had 1 shot on goal, but he made it count. It was his first career NHL goal, and it was a game winner, and it was enough for the Islanders to get the W 2-1. Curtis McLean is our Islanders' birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. You could find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL, on YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Everydayers, we are back tomorrow. We will get to your mailbag questions. Had 2 games to talk about, so we will get to the mailbag, and we will preview the game against the Boston Bruins on Tuesday night. So make sure you join us for that. If you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, feel free to email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. We'll take some more mailbag questions. If you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. I'm also live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game, so join me for some instant insight and analysis, and it's great to talk Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. Until tomorrow, which is when we're back, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe, and of course, let's go Islanders.